Ladies and gentlemen, Doug Collins of Alabama, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, and Kristen Sinema of Arizona have probably read a Business Insider article, Kavanaugh's Revenge. Every Democratic senator in a competitive midterm race who voted against Brett Kavanaugh lost. Every Democratic senator who voted against Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation to the nation's highest court lost their competitive re-election bid. So, you had Heitkamp lose, Donnelly of Indiana lose, McCaskill and Bill Nelson, they all lost. Wow. So, when you are in a historically red state, or I guess they call it a purple state now, where it could go either way, or you have a historically red state or conservative state. Definitely, places like Arizona and West Virginia. And Alabama, my God. Doug Collins only won because the guy he was running against was definitely the worst candidate of all time. But I think that this is absolutely phenomenal because you're going to have possible turncoats. So Mitt Romney's possibly going to turn against Trump. I think that he's probably leading the charge against Trump in the Senate. I'm referring to what takes place in the Senate impeachment trial. The Senate impeachment trial is going to list no direct evidence, absolutely no direct evidence, claiming that would back up the absurd notion that Trump worked with Russia. Or no, that's already been refuted by the actual Mueller report. Evidence was not sufficient to indict anyone on anything pertaining to collusion. They got people on process crimes, big deal. That's Democrats work off public relations and fabricating probes just to pave the way for Clinton 2020, who actually had her own criminal probes or criminal behavior covered up by Comey, McCabe, Strzok, all of these people. So Clinton actually owns servers with top secret intelligence on them. That's a crime. You cannot own you can't have for 4 years a secret private communication network of communication where you're running your own private servers and you're transferring surreptitiously, without the president's knowledge and without apparently anyone else's knowledge, top secret and special access program intelligence and thousands of classified emails onto servers outside of the United States government. You could do anything you wanted with this information, theoretically. And there's no law that she hasn't broken pertaining to, or I should say U.S. Code 793F, even if there's no intent, which there obviously was intent to hide communication. Clinton broke the law. Trump never broke any laws. He never worked with Russia. That was completely disproven by the Mueller report. He never worked with Russia, and there is no direct evidence that said he withheld. There's no direct evidence that says he withheld information. He withheld military assistance from Ukraine specifically to interfere in the 2020 election. That is not. No, they have yet to prove that, and they'll never prove that because it didn't happen. There's no document. There are no emails. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing they have in terms of direct evidence. If you go to the description section of any one of my segments, okay, go to the description section of any one of my segments and just read for yourself. Below in the description section, this is a 538 article, very, very interesting article, and it's right here. Oh my God, where is this? Why is it's so difficult to find things? Okay, so if you look at the description section, oh my God, why is it so difficult to find what I'm looking for? You've got to be kidding me. Oh, here. Okay, it's in the description section. Very easy to find for everyone. Says Democrats. Democrats' case against Trump, on the other hand, doesn't have that one key piece of evidence directly linking Trump to a quid pro quo. That's a December 2nd, 2019 article in 538. Do Democrats have enough smoking gun evidence for impeachment? They impeached anyway, even without that one key piece of evidence directly linking Trump to a quid pro quo. So thank you for bearing with me while I find the information that I'm trying to convey is on my description section. So it's in the description of every single segment. So here, yet the witness, this is the Associated Press article, yet the witness accounts, quote, yet the witness accounts left one prominent hole that offered a lifeline for Trump and his GOP allies. None of the witnesses could personally attest that Trump directly conditioned the release of the $400 million in military aid on a Ukrainian announcement of investigations into former Vice President Joe Biden and the Democratic National Committee. Doug Collins wants to keep his seat in Alabama. Okay, if there's any normal, decent, you don't even have to be, just like not completely horrible candidate, he will lose that Senate seat in Alabama. But they know what 4 or 5 senators lost their competitive races because they voted against Kavanaugh. These are Democrats who lost their competitive elections in red states, historically red states. There's no direct evidence linking Trump to withholding military assistance. Here's the Associated Press. I'll read it to you again. Yet the witnesses' accounts left one prominent role that offered a lifeline for Trump and his GOP allies. None of the witnesses could personally attest that Trump directly conditioned the release of the $400 million in military aid on a Ukrainian announcement of investigations into Vice President Joe Biden and the Democratic National Committee. So Kristen Sinema in Arizona already hasn't really played ball with the Democratic Party because Arizona's a red state. Alabama's a red state. Michigan, West Virginia's a red state. So they're just hanging on. It'll be very interesting when Democrats, or whenever the articles of impeachment are given to McConnell, it'll be very interesting seeing Doug Collins of Alabama, Kristen Sinema of Arizona, and Joe Manchin, who voted for Kavanaugh, by the way, the only Democratic senator to vote for Kavanaugh. It'll be very interesting to see media tell these people, oh, yeah, it's so obvious Trump withheld military assistance because Bolton, let's say they get witnesses. And then, let's put it this way, Democrats, if they get witnesses, Republicans are going to get their witnesses. So they're going to demand that Biden testify, which will be hilarious. I have a very important segment after this one, either a couple hours from this one or about 4 or 5 hours from this one. A very important segment about who told, the phrase, well, where's Hunter? The new phrase should be, and the more important phrase should be, who told Biden to fire Shokin, or who told Biden, or who ordered Biden to fire Shokin, to fire that prosecutor. So I explained that in the next segment. I go really just into it because Biden says they had guarantees or promises from Ukrainian officials. Well, where's the evidence of this? Then he says, well, call the president. The president's backing me up, to Ukrainian officials who oppose him, who say you have no authority. Well, if this is all above board, wouldn't the Ukrainian officials realize that he did have the authority, understand that this was U.S. foreign policy, become aware, or at least have knowledge beforehand that he's going to Kiev, that meeting, that time to actually force that prosecutor out? So it caught everyone by surprise, probably President Obama also. Or maybe President Obama told Biden to do that, but to fire the prosecutor. But President Obama has never stated publicly. Nobody has stated that he was told to fire that prosecutor. All we heard, and it's one thing. It's interesting because people say, well, it was U.S. foreign policy. Then why didn't he say that? What he said was, we had received promises from different officials to fire Shokin. Well, where are these? Where's the documentation? Where are the Ukrainian officials that promised to fire an official in Poroshenko's, the predecessor of Zelensky, who both state, by the way, there was no pressure to investigate the Bidens by Trump, and there was no leverage in terms of the military assistance. But where is the documentation stating that Biden was told by somebody to fire a prosecutor that just happened to just coincidentally look into investigate the corporation funneling $3.4 million by one estimate into his son's bank accounts, or into the corporation run by his son, Hunter. So you're going to ask, if you're the Democratic Party, or you're not running on Medicare for all, okay? You're not running, Dianne Feinstein's not running on Medicare for all, okay? Or she's not championing it. That's California. Chuck Schumer is in New York. The two most liberal and progressive states are California and New York. They're not running. Where are these people in the Senate running on Medicare for all aside from Bernie? And Democrats aren't even talking about his plan. They haven't passed any legislation in the House. So you're not running on a Green New Deal. That's a resolution. That was a public relations stunt. And you have 5 million people being lifted out of poverty. Okay. That is below also in the description. I'm not going to look for it. You can do that. It's below in the description. I have a lot of information in the description of every segment. But here, you have 5 million people being lifted out of poverty. Well, the nation's official poverty rate in 2016 was 12.7%. In November, that's according to the census. According to USA Today, in November 2019, the poverty rate in the United States was 11.3%. So from 12.7% to 11.3%. And then you have a decrease of 43.1 million Americans in poverty in 2016 under President Obama to 38.1 million. Okay, so 5 million people lifted out of poverty. 5 million Americans under President Trump. And then there's record low unemployment, record highs in the stock market, and 300,000 plus manufacturing jobs. And you're going to tell people the senators in red states that are holding on for dear life. Kristen Sinema won after numerous recounts. And Doug Collins won. It was a fluke. But you have, Joe Manchin, he has a base of support in West Virginia, but, if he votes along with Pelosi, he will lose that base of support. So it's just really interesting how you have Democrats talking about how Trump will, he's going to tarnish democracy. He's going to destroy the republic. Democracy is ripping apart the Constitution. And they can't even they're not going to, if it ever went to an impeachment trial, okay, which is supposed to technically start in a couple of days. Okay, January 6th was supposed to, it was the 6th, the 10th, something like that. The beginning of January. The articles of impeachment, if they were such, if it was so obvious Trump committed endless crimes, they would have simply given the articles of impeachment to a Republican Senate and actually shamed Republicans, and the rest of the country would have looked, if Trump really committed crimes, the rest of the country would have looked and said, oh my God, can you believe these Republicans are defending Trump? But obviously everybody knows it's all nonsense. Everybody knows it's all nonsense. They know very well that Trump didn't. There's no evidence, like the Associated Press and 538, acknowledge. There's no direct evidence linking Trump. There's no email. There's no directive. There's no order, command, nothing. There's no document, nothing. It's just, four or five or six former diplomats who don't like Trump say, well, it's so obvious. Well, who cares what they think? You can find a whole bunch of people, including William D. Campbell, who was the oh my gosh, William D. Campbell. Yeah, William D. Campbell. So here, Reuters. Informant had no evidence Clinton benefited from uranium sale. So this is exactly, he testified, this is hilarious. The informant provided no evidence of a quid pro quo. This is Reuters, March 8th, 2018. But he testified that he witnessed Russian lobbyists, bragging about their influence over the Clinton Foundation. And because he didn't have a document or any direct evidence, they just tossed it aside, even after millions flowed into the Clinton Foundation amid the Russian uranium sale, which is a forbade cash flow to the Clinton Foundation amid Russian uranium deal. Yellow cake is shipped out of the country. And the one thing you get from Reuters and everyone else on the left or mainstream is informant had no evidence Clinton benefited from uranium sale. Yeah, it was just his testimony. But if it's a testimony of people against Trump, it's the mountain of evidence. A mountain of evidence, just that one pesky thing called direct evidence. Well, William D. Campbell testified. William D. Campbell, and then you get, and he testified that Russian lobbyists were bragging about their influence over the Clinton Foundation and President Obama's administration and wanted to grease the wheels because of money flowing into the Clinton Foundation. He testified, why isn't he treated like Sondland and Bill Taylor and Fiona Hill and Marie Yovanovitch? And then you get secret witness in Senate Clinton probe is ex-lobbyist for Russian firm. So what? That means he probably has an in or some kind of, he's probably close to the people or had some kind of avenue that he could, some kind of way he could infiltrate that world. He was a part of that whole world then. So what? That's how that's what's called an informant. And so when you have a government witness who's part of that world, they can kind of give you the inside scoop, inside information. But instead, they try to disparage him. This is Reuters, by the way. Even though he testified that he was there, he witnessed Russian lobbyists bragging. He witnessed that they were talking about a quid pro quo and all of that. And he was actually an informant at the time, working for the United States government. This has been in the Hill. He was represented by Victoria Tenzing, brilliant lawyer, along with her husband, Joe DeGeneva. But look at the difference. They say, well, he didn't have any evidence. Did they have any evidence? There's no direct evidence. 538, the Associated Press, and other publications, but what other publications have done recently, they said, well, Republicans say there's no direct evidence. No, there is no direct evidence. It's already been documented. 538, Associated Press, there's other publications as well. It's like, yeah, well, there's no direct evidence, but it's, people have testified. Well, so William D. Campbell testified also. Are you going to push, a Democrat's going to push for a criminal investigation because of the Uranium One money? And President Obama failing to veto the sale of 20% of U.S. uranium capacity. But Russia was so afraid of Clinton, don't you know? That so afraid of Clinton that they hacked the DNC emails to show that Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Clinton were cheating Bernie Sanders, all to pave the way for Bernie 2020. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And they didn't hack Clinton's private servers. Yeah, right. Because, Putin and the FSB and all the Russian intelligence officials, they were indicted for hacking DNC. This is based on CrowdStrike's information. And if you look at the indictments, Company 1, the United States government is not listed as the evidence, as having compiled evidence against these Russian intelligence officers. Gee, I wonder why. But give me your thoughts below. You're going to tell these 3 senators who want to keep their jobs that you have to remove, not just impeach, remove the president after 5 million Americans have been lifted out of poverty. The poverty rate decreases substantially. Record low unemployment, record highs in the stock market, job numbers tremendous. GDP better than President Obama's GDP, and you got to remove him. Why? Because a whole bunch of diplomats were disgruntled and they gave their opinions, but there's no direct evidence, as the Associated Press and 538 admit in 2 articles, and even President Zelensky and President Poroshenko, the two presidents, the last 2 presidents, the current president and his predecessor of Ukraine, stated there was no pressure, no leverage, but you're expecting Kristen Sinema to lose her Senate seat in Arizona, and Manchin to lose his in West Virginia, and Doug Collins to lose his in Alabama. If they have like a normal, normal human being, Doug Collins would lose. But you're expecting these 3 senators, if you're Democrats, to vote to remove a president who's presiding over an amazing economy, which is how presidents are judged first and foremost, and a foreign policy that's a lot better than President Obama's foreign policy. Okay, just ask the people of Libya. Ain't going to happen. Or I think that they're going to side with President Trump. It's going to be hilarious. It will be hilarious. There will probably be more Democrat defectors than Republican. Give me your thoughts below. Check out H.A. Goodman's other channel right this second. I have a great segment. Thank you.